And I know I want to bring it back to growing up. I know you grew up in Queens, New York, one of the meccas of basketball on the East Coast. What was it like growing up there?
It was a basketball court on every corner, so you couldn't kind of get away from it. And then that coupled with just me hitting growth spurt after growth spurt, it was inevitable that I would play basketball.
When did you start playing? Were you a late
I
bloomer or
started playing. Yeah, I started playing really late. I started playing at 14.
Okay.
So yeah. I was going into the 10th grade, so ninth grade, 10th grade. I started playing.
Wow.
Yeah,
Not a lot of players start that late.
exactly.
What was your motivation for starting?
The funny thing is, I was I was actually walking to, I think it was to go get some food, and a guy a guy named Waz from my neighborhood, he saw me and he was like, "Yo, you play basketball?" And I was like, "Nah, I like soccer." And he was like, "Nah,
Yeah.
you gotta play basketball." So from that point on, he took my number down and he put me in the tournament for the local tournament is the Kenny Anderson tournament. And from that, I kept playing. They kept putting me on different teams, different going on different trips, and eventually I ended up with the Gauchos and at Rice.
Yeah, yeah. Talk to me about being a bit at Rice, because did you ever cross paths there with Kemba Walkers? I know he attended Rice for a bit.
Yeah, he was there. He was there my first year. We played together. He was a senior. I was a sophomore.
What's it like being around someone like that, being so new to basketball, and your first glimpse of it, you're getting, because he was a 5-star recruit, one of the most highly
hmm
recruited guys. What were some of the things maybe that you kind of took away from that experience, kind of seeing him from the inside?
It was a lot of motivation. You know what I mean, and also coming into that world, not really knowing the ins and outs of it. It was great to see guys like him, Chris Fouch, Durant Scott, who also was at that school, who were high level recruits. They they kind of showed me what hard work was and what the bar was. Like they set that bar up really high, and it's like this is what you work for. So it was great. And then just all three of them being humble guys, Kemba being just one of the most humble guys you ever meet. You would never know that he had those accolades at the time and then would go on to,
Yeah.
have the kind of accolades that he does now.
It's got to be tough for a young kid that's like 14, 15, 16 to stay humble when you're getting all these schools and stuff coming at you, right?
For sure, for sure. I would say that's the number one thing where family comes into effect. Where the people in your corner are actually just bring you down to earth and let you know like what I don't know what word I want to use. It's just the morals and the values
Mm.
that are important. You know what I mean? So family definitely comes into
Yeah.
play.
Talk to me a bit about your recruiting experience, being in high school and playing prep and stuff. Because obviously, you started playing basketball at 14, and then kind of fast forward a couple of years, and
Yeah,
you're already in
man.
the
And then
mix of the
two
recruits and
years
everything.
later,
Yeah,
2 years later, about just a whole lot of colleges, a whole lot of coaches coming in, and just telling you everything that you wanted to hear from the time you started playing. So it was a great experience. My mother enjoyed it as well. Going to all of these different places and experiencing places where we never thought that we'd actually go visit. You know, getting to meet a lot of different players who's been through kind of the same funnel that I went through. But they were at the colleges that I was looking at. I created a lot of friends. Momo Jones, he's from Harlem, and he went to Rice before I went, but I didn't I didn't play with him. So I met him through that same recruiting process. A lot of different guys. So it was great, great experiences. Great experiences.
was there anyone that you kind of leaned on during that time, being so new to basketball and being so young and getting everything thrown
Uh,
at you?
I, it was one of the people that helped me start playing and train me. He kind of, I would say, made most of the decisions when it came to that because I still wasn't 100% on which schools were the best fit. Like obviously you know names of schools, and some schools are more popular than others. But like the ins and outs of systems and developmental programs and all of that, it's like Damian Leslie. He definitely at the time was helping me a lot through that process.
Mm-hmm. What was kind of your process of narrowing it down to Rutgers? Because when you when you think about it, you getting recruited by other schools like Arizona, UNC, all this kind of stuff, right? And Rutgers
Hmm.
isn't the first school that comes to people's mind when they think of basketball.
Yeah, that is true. It's definitely more of a football school. I mean, shout out to them this year. They are about to make a tournament run,
Yeah,
but the first year that Rutgers is about to go to the tournament in a couple of years, all of this stuff happens.
go figure.
That's
Yeah.
yeah, but it had a lot to do with it being close to home. That was the number one thing for me. Where my mother could come to almost every game. The next thing was just like we spoke about how I had just started playing basketball, so I wanted time to develop and actually come into my own, because I was actually still learning basketball terms, terminology, and just things about basketball. And I I felt like Rutgers understood that. Van Macon, who's also a guy from Queens, and he was a coach there at the time. He through the recruiting process, I definitely I felt I felt a great feeling speaking to him, and I mean he definitely to this day is somebody that I'm really close with. He's actually the coach at St. John's now.
Mhm.
So and just that homie feeling. It was guys like Dane Miller there, who was from Rutgers. I mean from New York. Mike Poole, who was from Queens, and then the recruiting class that I came in with of Miles Mack, Eli Carter, Jerome Seegers, Greg Lewis, Derek Randall, and all I would say the and Malik Cohen, sorry. But most of the guys that I named in Miles Mack, Eli Carter, and Derek Randall, those are all three New York, New Jersey guys. So we
Mhm.
kind of knew each other playing, and also like just in growing up. So it was also kind of a us against the world kind of thing.
Mhm.
So once we realized that we all were gonna make that splash, it was kind of easy to make that decision. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. So it sounds like you kind of had more of a long term vision with your basketball
Yes,
career than
yes.
short term, because that's got to be that's pretty mature for somebody at that age to think of that viewpoint of things, right? Because I feel like for a lot of athletes, they kind of get caught up in the moment, in the short term, like what am I going to get 1 to 2 years out of this school or 1 or 2 years out of that school, whereas you're looking at it as a 4 year development plan.
Pretty much. I would say at the time I was definitely more of a raw athlete when it
Mhm.
came to just basketball and understanding just my IQ level and having like certain moves and certain things like that. It was like really a lot of athleticism I was playing off of, and I was able to leave Rutgers more skilled and more IQ oriented with the game.
Mhm. Talk to me a bit about coaching change that happened at Rutgers halfway through your time there, because for some athletes they kind of get scared when a coaching change happens because the guy that's recruited them, he's gone now, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
now a
yeah.
new coach
Well,
is
that's
in.
that's that's the great thing about it is like the guy like who I was talking to you about, Van Macon. He actually stayed through both of the coaches.
Okay.
So it was really a head coaching change in Mike Rice to Eddie Jordan. But Van Macon, who was the assistant coach from Queens that recruited me, he stayed there, and that made the transition for me easier. I would say that if he didn't stay, it would have been harder for me to just stay at Rutgers. But him being there, it made it not that big of a change. It was just more okay. All right, how are we gonna do this? After all of that stuff happened with Mike Rice, me and Van sat down and we kind of spoke, and it was just what's the next step? You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
and the fact that he was able to stay on, the next step kind of was just let's put in a lot of work this summer, and do what you got to do to make this jump to be one of the marquee players.
Was there anything in your
And
game that was there anything in your game that changed after the coaching change, whether on the court or off the court?
100%. I would say that summer I went through a lot of changes. You know what I mean? I put in a lot of work to just increase my skill level and my ability to score the ball. And it showed a lot, man, just from that 1 year to the year after that. My sophomore year, at the end of it, I kind of saw the light at the end of the tunnel, because my freshman year I broke my foot, and I kind of was battling that throughout my freshman year to the beginning of my sophomore year. And then once I saw that light at the end of the tunnel, it was pretty easy to then go out there and, you know, kind of know your spots, where you're gonna get the ball, where you're good at scoring, where you're good at playing defense. So going into my junior year, I just worked on those things consistently. Worked on getting my shots in those areas. Worked on playing one-on-one in those areas. And then my junior year, it was just blow up time.
Mm-hmm. Tell me a bit about like we said, Rutgers isn't the most known basketball school, and this year they were kind of getting it all together and stuff. But when you were there, I mean, you guys had more losses than wins, obviously. How tough was it to kind of stick it through those tough times?
It was extremely tough. You know what I mean? And I'm a guy who I wear my heart on my sleeve when I'm playing, and it is pretty tough to take a loss and then come back, start a new game plan, go back out and do the same. But I mean, in those times, it's just having a resolve and understanding that it's more about what I'm playing for. You know what I mean? And honestly speaking, excuse me, just going out there and leaving it all on the floor was the biggest thing for me. And the number one thing that I would say both coaches, and Mike Rice and Eddie Jordan, tried to instill in us as a team is just going out there and playing and giving it your all and leaving it on the floor. And I think Pikel now, who's there, he's doing the same exact thing. He's just, I would say, had a little bit more time and been able to lay the groundwork for great things. And that's why it's working so well. But I truly feel like it's tough for a coach in Eddie Jordan to come in for that short period of time, instill a system with guys who he really honestly didn't recruit and didn't foresee for his system, and just, you know, start racking up wins. So it was definitely a developmental process all 4 years while I was there. So that was something I had to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, because basketball isn't it's a complex sport, right? A lot of things that go on behind the scenes, and maybe some people don't realize that it's not just 5 guys on a team against 5 on another team, and you're just playing pickup or anything. There's set plays, there's systems, there's substitutions, everything that goes on into it. So I think a lot of people don't realize, you know, when a coaching change happens, the whole school kind of has to start from the bottom up again, and it's a rebuilding process.
Yes, it is. And unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever way that somebody wants to look at it, both coaches I played with for 2 years, and in 2 years, you know, one coach came in with a game plan to build up the basketball prowess of Rutgers, and the next coach came in 2 years after that to do the same thing. So. So it was just it was just kind of focusing on a game by game basis, and not letting those losses get to you. That was the number one thing. It was very tough, very, very tough. I'm not gonna lie, but it's just not letting those get to you.
Was there anything you did specifically to not let it get to you?
Stayed in the gym, man. Honestly, if you ask anybody at Rutgers, that's where I would be at. You know, just even like after a loss, I just wait till the game like everybody left, and the cleaning people would be there cleaning up all of the popcorn and all of that, and I'd be on the floor just shooting or doing ball handling drills, just letting off steam. and that helped a lot. You know, just being in the gym, just being in that sanctuary, and not letting outside forces, because you know when you leave, a lot of times people have things to say on why they think this happened and what this person should do. So just kind of living in the gym, man, and understanding that I had goals, you know, and regardless of win, lose, or draw, I still have to meet what those goals were.
Yeah, tell me a bit about after your time at Rutgers entering the G League, playing some pro ball, because you know we see a lot of on TV about how the draft works and what that process is like, but there's a lot of things behind the scenes we don't really, I think, get a glimpse of for undrafted rookies and stuff, and how that whole process works.
It my draft process was a little wacky because I started working out to start going to work out for teams, and uh, I had something called rhabdomyolysis, which was like I worked out so much and I wasn't I guess hydrating enough.
Mm-hmm.
My acid from my muscles started leaking into my body a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to go to the hospital and get IVs to flush all that acid out. And that kind of just pushed the working out to the side, you know, and doing all of that. So I wasn't able to work out for as much teams during the draft process because of that, because I had to give my body time to, you know, get back to normal and stuff. So fortunately, I went to a showcase and I was able to get a training camp deal with the Pacers. So that was kind of a blessing from God, you know what I mean? And just that was something while I was in the hospital, my mother was just talking to me about, was just, you know, I know you're disappointed about this whole process and you missing out on stuff, but your life is more important than your goals sometimes, and you have to realize that and just give thanks to God for what it is that you do have. So during that whole process, it was just staying close with God and building my faith. And then fortunately, or I would say just blessings from God happened, and you know I was in the right place at the right time. You know, scouts were there, and I did get that deal, and that was like the kickoff to my professional career.
Yeah, yeah. When you're having that kind of medical condition, that rhabdomyolysis, that's what it's called.
Rhabdomyolysis.
Rhabdomyolysis. I've heard of it before. What are the symptoms of it? Did you feel tired, dizzy?
Yeah, I was a bit tired, but it was more it would feel like if you were extremely sore. It was hard for me to move my arms and stuff. My chest started to swell up.
Wow.
Yeah, it was weird symptoms, and certain symptoms people, like with the numbers that I had, people actually sometimes lose their lives. So it was a blessing, man, just to get through that unscathed and get back so fast to playing basketball. But the symptoms at first I didn't think was that big of a deal. I thought it was just because I worked out really hard. So I was just really sore. I could just laying on the bed, can't move my arms kind of thing. So, you know, and I went to the doctor and he took my blood, and I went back home, went to sleep, and my trainer got the phone call from the doc probably I would say an hour, 2 hours after. And he came back and he was like, yo, we have to go to the hospital. The doctor said that it's actually serious. And I'm like, yo, I'm gonna go to sleep first and then we can go. He's like, no, bro, this is more serious than you think. So we rushed to the hospital and started getting fluids in me.
Yeah, yeah. And going through something like that at such a young age, I assume you're like 20, 21 at the time, 22 maybe. It's got to give you a whole new perspective, not only on basketball, but man, on life in general.
Yeah, man. It kind of just shows you how quickly something can be taken away from you that you kind of look at as your world. You know what I mean? So it was just me having to take a step back, because at the time when I was in the hospital, the doctors are telling me about, you could have lost your life, blah 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 blah. We're lucky we got to this early, and I'm just listening for when I'm gonna be able to play basketball again. Like so I'm like, so how long? So how long? Like everything they say, that's just the next question. And then finally at the end of it, or midway through the conversation, they told me I wouldn't be able to play for at least 2 weeks, because I wouldn't be able to leave there for at least 2 weeks, and then I wouldn't be able to play for another 2-3. So once they said that, like, I just completely just turned them off, and I stopped listening to anything, because I was pretty upset about that. And like I said, that's where after they left, that's where my mother kind of came in, and she was like, you gotta pretty much get a handle on things and understand what's truly important and what's at stake here. You know what I mean? You're upset about basketball and not really caring about your life. So that conversation that we had kind of put things in perspective, shook my world up a little bit, because obviously I was still upset, but I had a lot of time to think while I was there.
Yeah.
And her words just kept ringing to me over and over.
Yeah, it's so, I mean, having that second person there, in your case, your mom, is so important when you're going through those times. Because like you said, all you're thinking about is basketball. All you care about is getting, and there's probably a lot of things that you didn't think about at first because your mind is 100% basketball. You're, trying to make some pro teams and everything, and really having that person there to kind of keep you grounded and keep your priorities in check.
Yes. That's why I'm always thankful for my mother, man. She just always knows what to say. And I kind of just always, I wouldn't say since that moment, but that was one of the defining moments for me where I always trust her intuition on things. Because when you're younger, you kind of have that phase where you go against your parents a little bit, and I would say those were moments that added up to me now at 27, always kind of looking like her way to see how she feels about something, to then go back and maybe revise or strengthen a decision that I'm gonna make.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, I mean, after all this, you obviously recovered everything, played in the G League for a bit, and then I know you played out in Japan for a bit, right? What was that like?
Yeah, I was there for a short stint though. It was about it was about 2-3 months, man. It was great. I went down to Tokyo. It was a lot of fashion. It was like the fashion district down there, man. Everybody was all fly and wearing stuff that I would see later on in America, probably like months later. But they had it. They had like Babe Store, playing Young MA in the Babe Store, stuff like that. Their fashion culture is great. And then just from the basketball perspective, it was great for me to see overseas basketball for the first time, because that was my first experience with it. And it was a little weird experience. I didn't too much. I don't know the exact words to use, but I would just say that I would have rather at that point in time get back to the G League and make a run at the NBA than be out there, I would say. But it wasn't anything to do with anyone there. It was just, I'm a pretty headstrong person, and I have like goals that I want to meet. And at the time, I just felt like I was so far away from those goals.
Tell me a bit about how hard of a decision it was to leave the U.S. and go to a whole other side of the whole world. It's one thing moving around the country, playing ball and everything, but it's another thing to move to the other side of the world.
It's always an adjustment. I've done it 2 times, and I would say both times it was an adjustment, first to Japan and then second to Israel. Just when you get over somewhere, I always tell people this is just kind of just taking in the culture, because a lot of times people just go and stay inside the entire time, and that's when it becomes more of a mental prison, So like just going to Israel, I traveled down to the Dead Sea. I traveled up to Tel Aviv. I just because in most places they give you a car, so you're able to go places. It's just if you choose to or not. But I just you just make sure and kind of just throw yourself into the culture, and me being a pretty spiritual person, I have respect for people's cultures, and I respect people's everyday life, and I don't try to go over to the country and expect for them to speak to me in English or expect that some of the norms in America be the norms in these countries. So I kind of just try to at least attempt to speak to them in their language. And then sometimes, I would say in Israel, most of the times people spoke English, so they were able to say, all right, we could speak English, bro, And from there, I think the world is yours once you realize and respect the culture, and you take it for it as an experience more than just I'm out here to play basketball. Because if you're just out there to play basketball, it's a much tougher go around than let me experience something that without basketball I probably wouldn't be experiencing. That's just something that I told myself after Japan is just take time and get to know the people and get to know what's around you and get to know how long things have been around, and what started certain trends in the culture and what started certain behaviors. And in Israel, that was like a great place to do that because it's a religious holy land for a lot of different groups. So I was able to, just soak all that up. And I feel like I'm definitely a better person for it. And I have lifelong friends that I met out there that I obviously still speak to today.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. I mean, for any athlete, they play the sport they play because they love it and they're good at it and everything, of course. But it's at the end of the day, it's a job, and there's got to be things outside of your job that you enjoy. So I think it's really important for people to kind of grasp the idea of when you're out in new places, take some time to like explore it, meet new people, meet the culture, grow as a person, not only as an athlete, but as a person overall.
Exactly. And I kind of have taken that attitude to now every town because I've played on 1, 2, 3, 4 G League teams now. So I've kind of each town or each state that I've moved into kind of taken that same attitude to get to know the people in the vicinity and just understand that culture, because I think people, I wouldn't say they don't realize, but people don't pay attention to the fact that even state to state, there's different cultures and there's different ways that people do things, So just taking that in, like now being in Oklahoma and understanding some of the history and some of the tragedies that has happened out here, and there's different Native American tribes and things like that. Just taking time to also look at that and not just look at the basketball side kind of calms me down and lets me understand that it's a lot of different facets to life, even though basketball is my main goal for my career, and the NBA is the final destination. But then on the spiritual side, it's great to get to know people and build and bring kind of a happiness to anyone I come in contact with.
Yeah. Life's bigger than basketball. It's like you said, it's a big part of your life. No one's, or any athlete's life, nobody's doubting that, but there's more to life than basketball. And you got to start preparing these things as well, because you can't be playing basketball forever. There's a life after basketball too.
100%. 100%.
You mentioned you bounced around a bit in the G League and now with the OKC Blue. It kind of seems like you're kind of having one of your best seasons so far. I mean, before the season stopped, but it's been one of your best seasons of your career. What's different about your game this year, or what's different about the OKC Blue locker room that's allowing you to kind of have the year you're having?
Oh, well, OKC Blue is a great organization as far as they have all of the facilities. They have a practice facility where you can go in at any time to work out, weight room. Some G League programs don't have that. That's one of the things. And then the Thunder, they have they've given every resource that the NBA team has to OKC Blue. You know what I mean? So like there's nothing that the Thunder players would have that the Blue players wouldn't. And out here is just whether or not you want to utilize those resources. So that kind of also helped, getting in extra workouts with coaches and going over film to understand what I can get better at in games, that also helped. And then just also taking a lot of time last year because I stopped playing in the G League last year in I think December, and from December to June I really just trained and honed in on my skills a bit, to get ready for wherever it is I will play this year. Mm-hmm. And fortunately, I was able to play with the Blue, which is the kind of organization that I just said. And that in turn, worked out perfectly because I was able to showcase what I worked on, and I just getting myself in the best shape of my life up until this point.
Mm-hmm. One thing to leave off on here before we wrap up, you've obviously been through every level of basketball. You've been through adversity. You've seen it all pretty much. For the young kids out there that are playing prep or, they're starting out their college career and stuff, what's the kind of one piece of advice you give them when you think about the mental side of basketball for them to kind of focus on if they got some dreams of playing some pro ball in the future?
Well, for the human being in them before the basketball player in them, I would say that definitely go with God, because God is always in the mix. And for the basketball player in them, I would just say the difference between them and a lot of different people that's doing the same thing as them is whether or not they give up. That's so always keep that in mind, that if you give up, you lose. That's just point blank. A lot of people might have opinions on what you should do. You might even have an opinion on what you should do, but you never know what could happen if you don't give up. You know what I mean? So just stay with it and keep going. Put it. And another thing, I know you said one thing, but this is something that one of my coaches said to me once, and it always rings true. It's like, if you're in practice, you're here for 2 hours. And if you choose to BS for those 2 hours, you never get those 2 hours back, but you were there for 2 hours anyway. So why not just go hard for those 2 hours, And it's the same thing from age 14 to 17. If you're in high school basketball, it's like, why not give it your all? And then from there, figure out what you want to do, because then you have no regrets. But then if it's like you can look back and you like, I should have did this and I should have did that, then it's hurtful to stop playing because then you had more in the tank. You know what I mean? So always make sure you don't have anything left in the tank, and just don't give up.
You see it so often. You see it so often with young athletes sometimes, that when they're one of the best players in their league or team, whatever it may be, they might not take practice seriously. It's like, I got this. Like next game, don't any practice. I just go up and throw up 30 and we're going to win, right? And it comes with maturity and just being, going through all that kind of adversity where it kind of clicks in. Like, man, if I could go back and just hit up all those practices, at full effort, maybe this would have been different outcome.
Exactly. You get it all the time, man. Especially, me growing up in Queens and meeting so many older guys that played basketball. That's something that I noticed like right away is each one of them that I spoke with had a story on how they could have done this or they could have done that, you know. And I always knew that I didn't want to be in that situation where I would be looking back on a younger generation and not telling them a success story, but telling them a what if story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's dope, man. Anyways, man, again, let's wrap this up. Appreciate you kind of taking some time today. Hope your
No
family's
problem,
staying
bro. I
safe and
appreciate
healthy
you.
and everything. And this was dope. Thanks again, man.
No problem, bro. God bless you.